Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rocket Top Insider Diamond Pass podcast, coming at you on a Tuesday, May 13th edition. I'm your host, Jack Foster, as always, joined alongside Ryan Schumpert, coming at you after another series loss for Tennessee baseball, falling to Vanderbilt in 2 of 3 games, winning game 1 in a 3-2 thriller, and then losing games 2 and 3. Were competitive in both. Game 2, not as much as game 3. Game 3 went down to the wire. So little bit different story than a couple of other series losses Tennessee has had in the past month, but nonetheless, another series loss as Tennessee has lost 4 straight series in 5 of its last 6. But before we get into it, Ryan, how you doing on this Tuesday morning?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back on here, and you know, upsetting. I guess we don't have a little bit better stuff to talk about for a Tennessee baseball team that continues to struggle with a lot of the same stuff. But I do think, like you said, maybe a little bit different flavor in some ways this weekend, and definitely some new angles to look at things, especially Marcus Phillips.
Yeah, no, for sure. And while I think I'm not going to say it was more encouraging because Tennessee still lost the series, and you could argue Vanderbilt's worse than the likes of an LSU or maybe even an Auburn teams Tennessee has lost to in this past month. But I think the way Tennessee lost the series is almost more not troubling, but just more of a tougher pill to swallow, given that Tennessee was so close on Sunday and really felt like they could have taken that game, but just a few too many homers for Vandy sunk them, and just more of the same is what the story is for Tennessee baseball right now. They keep losing games in similar fashion. Poor situational hitting, poor defense, just hitting, just unforced errors, things that with a ton of talent and a just great offense would be overlooked in years past or even this year, obviously, if Tennessee had a juggernaut of an offense. But when you don't and you're playing closer games, these kinds of mistakes can't happen. They continue to plague Tennessee, and that's why Tennessee's 6-11 in its last 17 games.
Yeah, no, I think you're
SEC
exactly right.
games.
I think this weekend, if this had been Tennessee hadn't lost 3 straight series, or if it had been to Ole Miss instead of Vanderbilt, I think there would be some frustration with the way Tennessee lost the 3rd game, where really it felt like they were the better team. Um, but it wouldn't be cause to hit the panic button by any means. But you just stack that on top of a team that has lost 4 straight series in 5 of its last 6, and had that series right for the taking. Um, and again, like I said, lost by 2 runs in game 3, had the tying run at second base in the 9th inning when the game ended. Left 12 runners on base compared to 3 for Vanderbilt, committed 3 errors compared to 1 for Vanderbilt. You look at those 2 things right there, and it's pretty easy to say, like, yeah, if you're Tennessee, you should have won that game. And when you didn't, and you drop another series and you do it against a rival, um, yeah, combined with just the way that, especially in some of these other series, it didn't even feel like Tennessee was particularly close to winning the series, or at
Right,
least some of their
exactly.
losses were very lopsided. It's
Hmm.
kind of like, well, this was an opportunity, and this is one you really probably should have had against a team that's pretty similar, I would say, in skill set to Tennessee. I think I don't know if hurts more is the right word, but I think it's definitely probably more frustrating for the people inside that locker room.
Well, I think maybe we had said this one time, but I had certainly thought it is that with the way Tennessee's offense is this year, especially down the stretch, you scoring 5 to 6 runs should get you a win. Like you'd hope that gets you a win because you're probably not going to score more than 5 to 6 runs a lot of times, right? That's just not the nature of this team. So you look at the 2 losses, 6 runs on Saturday, 5 runs on Sunday. It's like, okay, Tennessee put themselves in good position in what is its worst trait, which is, I think, obviously, I think overall infield defense or just, some things like that are the worst part about this team. But when it just comes to the treetop, like, hey, pitching, bullpen, offense, like I've said, offense is the worst part of this Tennessee teams when it comes to the big things. So when that is actually maybe not doing well, but doing solid, doing average, you'd expect Tennessee to have a a series win at home against a team that's not quite a juggernaut like Vanderbilt. And that just didn't happen, especially a team in Vanderbilt whose offensive numbers are bad. They're not a good team hitting the baseball. So I think that's what's even more frustrating too, is that, the offense, while it wasn't great, did provide life consistently, and Tennessee still was unable to pull out a series win. Whereas in those Auburn series, those Kentucky series, it was just, I mean, you can't scoring, you can't win scoring one run. That wasn't the case this time around.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially, and you kind of hit on it there, the pitching is the strength of this Vanderbilt team. So,
Yeah.
and again, I would even go as, the offense was solid. But, Tennessee scores what, 14 runs and they hit 294. They had an on base percentage of 354.
Yeah.
I
The
mean, they had an on
situation
base
lighting
plus
was bad.
slugging, just looking at it right now, of like 840, and they scored whatever that is, under 5 runs a game. I think there's just frustration in that the results offensively was worse than the overall numbers would indicate, that Tennessee wasn't able to capitalize. And to do that again against what is on paper Vanderbilt's strength, its pitching staff, and in large part, at least in game two, Vanderbilt really just small balled their way to runs,
Yeah.
capitalizing on Tennessee's ineptitude. And in game three, they did a little bit of that early, and then the power kind of came out late for Vanderbilt. But even, when you talk about 0-2 triple off the wall with 2 outs, 0-2 home run, 2-run home run with 2 outs, 1-2 home run with 2 outs, like all those things, even from the pitching side. It just feels like a lot of things. Nothing just like basic bad this weekend for Tennessee. Everything had a little bit extra gut wrench, or um, you know, something after that you would say you just can't have that happen.
Yeah. And you talked about Vandy small balling their way to a game two win. We're 7 minutes in. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room with everything going on around Tennessee baseball right now. And that is Marcus Phillips. And, could Tennessee make changes to its pitching rotation? You wrote about this yesterday on RockyTopInsider.com. Go check it out if you haven't already. But starting on Saturday, Tony Vitello said, you know, that Marcus indirectly, that Marcus has to be better at holding runners and preventing teams from running on him so much, or he's not going to pitch. You referred to him as the other guy when he was first referring to Tegan Kuhn starting on Sunday, but that was Tony's tone. And then he kind of went back on Sunday and said, we're all friends here. Saturday needs to be better. Day two needs to be better. Talking about the upcoming series, I don't give a bleep who's pitching or playing. So, I don't think I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's definitely a little up in the air, at least as far as what Tennessee could do with its starting rotation, specifically on Saturday this weekend. And Tony's fed up with how Tennessee keeps losing game twos. That is clear.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think it's probably either. I think Tony knows what he's going to do. Like tonight, he might tell us, recording on Tuesday, tonight after the game, he might tell us, no, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I think he knows what he's going to do. And it's either that was a last case message to try to get to Marcus Phillips, to call him out publicly to the media like that. Because I know this is something that Tennessee has been working on. They're trying to, they're not going to get rid of Marcus Phillips' big leg kick, but he can do things and be more attentive, throwing over to first base or throwing to second base, delaying kind of, or staggering, mixing into timing, look over runners, and how long it takes him to throw after all that. He can alter some of that stuff that makes it a little bit harder to steal bases on him, and he hasn't really been doing it. So I think it's either a last gasp call to get him to do some of those things that they've been working on, or they're going to make a change and they're going to go with what I would assume would be AJ Russell on Saturday, or
Yeah.
in game two on Friday, and Tegan Kuhn's in game three on Saturday. So my guess is he knows what he's going to do already at this point. And obviously there's only two outcomes either way, but that kind of being the logic of why he did what he did.
Yeah, my thing is with this, and I wouldn't blame Tennessee if they took Phillips out of the rotation. It's really tough to win games when you don't have a juggernaut of an offense that we keep referencing. When a leadoff single or even a hit by pitch, or maybe you give up a walk to a really good player, just automatically turns into a triple. Like it's really tough to win games when that happens. And Vandy scored its first 2 runs, bang bang, off of just the leadoff runner getting on. It's not even that Phillips got hit around or that he's particularly bad pitching. Like he hasn't been that bad when it comes to just pitching and doing
And
what.
Tennessee's second most productive pitcher in SEC
Yeah,
play.
yeah, overall for sure. And look what happens when runners don't get on. He shoves against LSU. Like it's literally just when runners get on that Phillips has these bad outings. And what I'm getting to though is if he's going to have a bullpen role, then unless they're just making sure he comes in with a clean inning every time, you're gonna come in with runners on, maybe at least sometimes. So that would almost be worse. I think if he's going to go to the bullpen, you almost have to do it as Phillips comes in as a clean inning and like a extended relief guy just to piggyback off of someone else if that's what they want to do. I don't think he's going to be like a Snead where he comes in late games and tries to get a save.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think he could be runner on base if that runner's on third, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
fair, of course.
or maybe, maybe second. You feel like you can work around that a second with 2 outs or something
Right.
like that. But no, I'm with you. I think it would have to be a long relief type thing, which would be, I mean, Tegan Kuhn's, they haven't, we can talk about that in a minute. They still haven't taken the floaties off of Tegan Kuhn's. I wish they would.
Yeah,
AJ Russell's still, not built up a ton. So if those 2 guys are going to be weekend starters, there's going to be need for a long relief guy. And I think that's what Marcus Phillips' role would have to be if he's going to be long relief. And look, I wrote about all the numbers of the base stealing and all that's pretty jarring. I wrote about you do have some options with Coons and Russell. It is feasible to go away from Phillips. I heard about what you just said, the kind of issue if you're going to move him to bullpen, there's not really a ton of places he fits, and he has to pitch. It's not like he can't pitch for this team.
of course.
I think the thing that I can't quantify, and to me is the question of whether if I'm making the decision, when I'm deciding if I'm going away from Marcus Phillips, the thing that I would dictate that for me is it, do you see, if you're Tony Vitello, if you're watching the body language of your guys, do you see a group that's being demoralized by how things are going? The agony of a run, just what happened in the very first inning. He
Yep.
hits back foot breaking ball, first pitch of the game, hits the Vanderbilt leadoff man on the back foot. He's still second on the second pitch, third on the third pitch, scores on an RBI ground out. Like, do you think that is wearing on your team? And they mentally are struggling with that of immediately falling behind just by very small things. Because if that's the case, I think it gets past, Marcus Phillips has been your second most effective pitcher, even with this issue. It gets past all that to where you think it has a negative effect on your offense and on every single other aspect of your team because of this issue. I think you go away from them. And I think what's really interesting, I don't know, this could be me reading too much into it, but when you brought it back up on Sunday, you said the quote about I don't give an S who's playing or who's pitching. And then he went, the very next thing he said was on Friday night, Liam Doyle goes out there and shoves and plays with I mean, he didn't say this exactly, but essentially an FU mentality, an FU to the
That he's
other
a
team,
warrior.
and as a warrior, and the rest of our team follows his lead. That was the very next thing he said, is that they follow Liam Doyle's lead in his mentality. And I could, see how it would be demoralizing trying to play behind Marcus Phillips in the standpoint of just the smallest mistake leads to a run, it feels like at this point. At least teams that are good base running and aggressive on the base pass. So to me, that's the big, when it comes to do you remove Marcus Phillips or not, to me, that's the big question. Because if you don't feel like it has that negative impact on the rest of your team, to me, he's still your second best pitcher. Or at least Secchi's been your second most effective pitcher in SEC play. I would keep rolling with him and not make that change because there's not an obvious place he fits in the bullpen. But if you feel like that is an issue and it's having a negative impact on the rest of the team, I think because of that and because of the the mojo and all that type of stuff that is obviously bad around the team right now that's lost 4 straight series, I think you do make that move.
Yeah, really well said. And it's like the way I would put it is it's spotting the other team a touchdown. Like 2 runs probably equals a
Yeah.
touchdown in football. So you're on average giving up around 2 to 3 runs a game just because teams are running on you at will. And yeah, it's like I said, it's just really hard to win games. And look at the results outside of literally one time where Marcus Phillips just was so dominant, no runners got on, really. They lose all these game twos. It's just what happens. And yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's to stick with your football analogy, I think it was Brad Shepard, responded to one of my tweets, and I thought this was pretty good comparison. He was like, "It's like special teams in football. You just can't ignore it. Like, it's
yeah.
hopefully something you don't notice, but when it's bad, and it can 100% lose you games, and that's what's happening for Tennessee right now."
Well, you mentioned the top candidate to start on Saturday if Tennessee makes a change. Of course, it could be Coons, I guess, but I think we would project it to be Russell because Coons has started so many Sundays already. AJ Russell coming off his best outing of the season, 3 2/3. Comes in, gives up a couple of hits that I think it was Loy before him, right? That go on Loy for the game. So Russell actually doesn't give up a run, an earned run, I should say. But hey, after that inning when he came on with runners on, when he started the next, he looked great there for a good while in extended relief, highest pitch count of the season. And this is what Tennessee needed to see from AJ Russell. And they let him go in a game that really felt out of reach. So probably was good to get that comfort level up for AJ. And now I think he's, really all systems go. Not that he wasn't all systems go before, but it just felt like things were rocky. Now with his best outing of the season under his belt, Tennessee really needed that going into a huge series on the road at Arkansas when it comes to where Tennessee is going to be seated in the postseason, and then of course the postseason itself.
For sure. And even you talk about giving up the 2 hits that allowed the inherited runs to score. One of those jammed the Vanderbilt batter, just kind of bad luck on it.
Yeah.
The other one was hit pretty hard, a line drive single to right field. So, no, I mean, I think it was definitely the best he's looked. There is that element of it felt pretty low stress, I guess, just because Tennessee
Hmm.
was down 10-4 by the time that inning ended. They got it back to 10-6, so they were in striking distance while he was still pitching. But no, he pitched well. I think if Tennessee wins the game on Sunday, we'd be sitting here talking about how important it was that he was able to get Tennessee to the finish line on Saturday and really had basically the whole Tennessee bullpen available for Game 3 on Sunday. So he did his job. He looked as good as he has all season. I would again say, because what it's now 4 SEC appearances. I would say the last 2 are the 2 he's looked the best in, even though he
Yep.
had the bad line with, again, some bad luck against Auburn the week before. Things kind of got away from him in the 3rd inning. So it's more positive progression. Again, I think he threw 48 pitches, I want to say.
Yeah, I know it was around 50. I don't have the exact number, but around that area.
Yeah, you'd want to see, especially when it comes to us talking about him maybe being a starting pitcher for this team, tying it into this Phillips conversation. Like, you'd probably like to see him at least start to get to that 75 range, but definitely a step in the right direction. And, it again feels feasible that he could be not just an opener for Tennessee, but at least a starter that gets into the 4th or 5th inning.
Yep, and Tennessee's going to need that, as we always say. Really need 4 starting pitchers going into the postseason, and we'll see what happens with Phillips if Tennessee would entrust him to start games in the postseason. I think it would be intriguing if Tennessee has a series loss to Arkansas and things shake out to where they're going to have to end up playing on Tuesday. Like say Tennessee loses on Friday night, or Thursday night, it would be this week at Arkansas. That's Tennessee's best chance to win a game in any
Yep.
series. We all know that. So say Tennessee loses the opener. They roll with AJ Russell to start Saturday. Things aren't going well. Do you save Phillips for a Tuesday game in Hoover? That could be something that ends up happening. Who knows? But it's definitely interesting to see how things will shake out. Of course, Tegan Coons will be a part of things moving forward. He started Sunday and looked good. Did not give up, or only gave up 2 runs in 3 2/3. 3 hits given up, only 1 walk, struck out 5. This is 2 straight weeks where Tegan Coons has looked pretty good. much better than he did the weeks prior. I'm talking about his makeshift start against Auburn and then this outing in day 3 against Vanderbilt. And yeah, Ryan said he's kind of been dealt with floaties for a while. It doesn't feel like Tennessee wants Tegan Coons to go 4 or 5 innings, but he gets taken out after getting a couple outs in the fourth and gets pulled in a non-high leverage spot. I think it was a matchup thing against
Yeah,
Barcy.
same guy had hit the home run
Yep.
off of him.
Colin Barcy, the Vanderbilt catcher, brings in Krenzel, who has piggybacked Coons obviously most of the season. So Tegan Coons, Ryan, I think he's going to continue starting for Tennessee moving forward. I feel like he's building right now. I've loved the way he's pitched majority of this season. I think the talent is clearly there, and I just want to see what his upside is. He still hasn't reached that, and I don't know if Tennessee's allowed him to reach that quite yet.
No, I agree. And look, I think Tony, and maybe you would call it a little bit of overmanaging, on Sunday had the pitching stuff very, very mapped out. And
Mm.
we saw we saw Krenzel, who hadn't thrown and has been the stacked Teagan. And then we saw Tennessee's 3 best bullpen arms throw after that, and Franklin, Loy, and Snead. So I think it's very clear today we're going to use everybody and, going to be a little aggressive pulling guys. But I mean, he was throwing the ball well. I mean, he gave up the one run with some bad defense behind him and some stolen bases, kind of the normal stuff.
Yeah,
The
and
normal stuff that shouldn't be normal. And then he gave up the one solo home run. And, look, at that point in the game, it's obviously a small sample size. But I think the only time Tennessee got Colin Barcy out on Sunday, Barcy hit the ball about 5 feet shy of the wall in right field. So it
he was
wasn't
mashing.
like, everybody was struggling to get that guy out. He had a heck of a day. So yeah, it just feels like to me, Coons is one of Tennessee's most talented pitchers, and he's had some up and downs. He hasn't been dominant in his freshman season, but when you're talking about a pitching staff and plus a bullpen that's had some struggles, and getting through 27 innings every single weekend has been a grind. Like, I don't know, I would be pushing him more. At least at this point, it feels like since he's thrown the ball well the last couple weeks, it feels like if this team, for this pitching staff to reach its ceiling, they need to lean more on Tegan Coons and be trying to see if he can get 5 or 6 innings, and not being, not that he's always going to get there, and it doesn't mean you just leave him out there to die if he's struggling in the 5th or 6th inning. But I'd be trying to get that and maybe giving him a little bit more leeway, because I think that's the best chance for this pitching staff to kind of reach its ceiling.
Where are you at with Braden Krenzel? Obviously missed those couple of weeks with the sickness. Comes back, look good, but these last 2 weeks he's pitched hasn't really been long outings like it was before his sickness. 1 2/3 this time around. Again, pulled in a little bit peculiar spot for Tanner Franklin. I mean, I think Braden Krenzel can still get a lot of valuable outs for Tennessee. I just he's the one pitcher of this bullpen that I kind of don't really know what to expect from him moving forward, if that makes sense. Like, I think we kind of know what Tanner Franklin is at this point. We know what Dylan Loy is at this point. Nate Snead, heck of a weekend for him, kind of bouncing back from a couple of bad ones. But Braden Krenzel still kind of he's a weird chess piece in this whole bullpen thing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, it doesn't feel like he's the same guy he was before missing those couple weeks due to illness. But obviously it wasn't an injury; it's just an illness. So you're
Yeah.
hoping with more reps he can kind of get back into that groove. And certainly he was a lot better on this Sunday than he was the week before against Auburn when he really struggled. Um, so yeah, I think what you said is right. I just don't really know exactly what to expect from him right now. He isn't the same guy that you feel. It doesn't feel like right now he's the same guy that you feel like he can go out there and get you 9 outs in a long relief outing. But it also, I also definitely don't think it's like, all right, you shouldn't be giving him opportunities at this point either. Like, it's somewhere in the middle, where, when you talk about, like we were talking about Sunday, I feel like Tony kind of had that thing scripted. It kind of makes it hard to script because you just, right now, I don't feel like you kind of know what you're going to get from Krenzel. 2 SEC outings removed from multi-week absence.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just wrapping up the bullpen discussion here, Tanner Franklin, I think, has largely been much better in the last month, but those two those 202 fastballs with the triple and the homer were really tough right there before the delay. Kind of lost Tennessee the game in the end. The triple from Holcomb, I believe it was, that hit off of Newstrom's glove and right, and then the homer right before the delay to put Vandy ahead 5-3. Lloyd gives up the homer out of the delay. I think his stats on the weekend were worse than he actually was. And then final thing, Nate Snead, I mentioned it, but comes in, gets those final outs on Friday, which was huge and looked like vintage Nate Snead, looked like 2024 Nate Snead doing so. Comes in Sunday, does give up one homer, but I think was much better this weekend than he was, like I said, in weeks prior.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think you saw him, Tennessee, I don't know if ask less of him is the right word, but shorter outings and kind of in that sense.
They
Bring
were
him in
more
for
late game spots, like no extended relief. Yeah.
yeah, bring him in for one inning on Friday, empty the tank. I mean, I think he hit 101 multiple times. Like, I
Yep.
mean, and that's when he's. I mean, to me, that's kind of what you see with Snead. When his fastball is in the upper 90s, he typically looks pretty good. When that fastball starts to get down to 96, 95, you start to see people hit him a little bit more. Um, and obviously, he's got a blemish on the end of his day on Sunday with I think it was a 2-out home run in the ninth, or
Yeah.
yeah, top of the
Mancini,
ninth
nine
inning.
hole hitter. Yeah.
Uh-huh, which was his first SEC home run of the year.
It was a little oppo shot. Yeah.
Yeah, so that puts a little bit of a sour ending on it. But for him to shut down a very tight game, he comes in on Friday night and then to throw what was a little bit of extended relief, not super, super extended, but a little bit more, and to be pretty effective on Sunday. Um, Definitely the best outing Snead's had in a little while, and a very positive sign.
I think I asked you this quite a few weeks ago, and it was like a 3 or a 4, if I remember correctly. But on a scale of 1 to 10, Ryan, what's your trust in this Tennessee bullpen right now?
Oh, that's a good question. It's kind of also hard because it feels like some of the pieces are changing each
Yeah,
week
yeah,
with
yeah.
who's starting and who's not.
Let's remove Russell and Phillips from the answer. Just talking about Lloyd, Franklin, Snead, Krenzel, the main guys.
4, I
4.
guess. Maybe 5. Yeah, I mean, it's just again, there's no true lockdown guy. It doesn't feel like.
It's it's similar to the offense in that there's only a few guys, and those guys have to be really good. Like Tennessee's offense, you absolutely need those top 4 to be dynamite because you can't depend on the rest. With the bullpen, it's hey, we need Snead, Loy, and Franklin to be really good because the Breed Loves and the Arvidsons of the world just I we can't trust them to get big outs for us. Like there's not a lot of depth here. So it really puts the pressure on these guys to be better, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, if that's 1,000% the case. And look, I mean, I think you even. Yeah, no, I'm siding more with 4. Even Friday night, it's your best guys. Everybody's available. You get 7 innings from Liam Doyle. You need 6 outs from the bullpen and a 3-run lead. And look, they get the job done in the end. But Tanner Franklin gives up a run in the 8th. Dylan Lloyd gives up a run in his 2 batters face, a solo home run. And it's like, all right, well, now things are really dicey as Nate Snead tries to get the final 2 outs of the game. It just, to that point, it just doesn't feel like there's any true lockdown guy that you can trust weekend in, weekend out. Dylan Loy has had been overall good for Tennessee, handful of good weekends, or handful of really good weekends in a row. Didn't have a very good weekend this past weekend. Uh, Tanner Franklin has outings where he looks dynamite, and then he has outings where it's kind of maddening, like it was for him
Yeah,
on Sunday.
right. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I still trust Nate Snead quite a bit, even with the struggles. I still trust Dylan Lloyd quite a bit. Tanner Franklin is the one I trust less, and then Krenzel, like I said, I just don't really know how to evaluate. But I think this season will come down to these guys, honestly, because Liam Doyle can only do so much, and I just do not think the offense is going to be able to carry. So the bullpen has to be good, and it's a little unfair to put that much pressure on it, but that's the state of this team. So if these 4 guys can just shove all postseason long, I think Tennessee can definitely make the College World Series. But if they are really hit or miss, not going to win enough games. Like I think this is the X factor of the entire Tennessee team. It's this bullpen to me.
See, that's an interesting It's an interesting question. So I think maybe Bob and Sam asked me that on their show yesterday. Like, if there's one thing you could fix for this team, what would it be? And I think that's the hard thing. And look, it's just natural fan nature. But like, you see so many things that are,
Bad.
it's, if this had happened instead, if this
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
if Alberto Osuna was in the lineup, like this team, it would save all. And there's nothing that's the case because they're having issues everywhere. But I mean, you're saying you think it's the bullpen. If you could, would that be your answer? If you have
I
one
think a
thing,
dominant bullpen would put Tennessee in a better position. Yes.
yeah, I think mine would be the top of the lineup to all get going at the same time.
Just completely rake.
Keelan, Fisher, uh, Inslee, and then one of Bargo and Curley to really get going and have all have big weekends at the same time.
But you think that would be enough to allow this team to have a run?
I think it's your best bet.
Hmm.
I think you can get through a regional that way, and then you win on Friday night in the Super with Liam Doyle on the mound. Those guys do that. I think it gives you a good chance to win one of the next two.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, that would be my pick. Again, it's what I just said. They have so many issues everywhere that there's not one thing that you could say, all right, you get right here, and they're for sure going to make it to Omaha. I don't think there's anything like that. It's just, if you could choose one, what would be the best bet? I would go with that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think my trust level in those four guys is higher than the bullpen right now. So I guess I'm like,
Yeah.
you only get one wish. You don't want to burn it on something you think is more likely. So I guess to me, I would rather bet on those four guys being able to be really consistent all postseason long. Maybe not hit 400 every weekend, but to do that, than the bullpen to be shut down. Like, I think a Tennessee bullpen needs to be shut down if they're going to win these games, and I just don't know if that's the case. Let's move on to the offense, though. Talk about these guys. Really nice weekend for Dean Curley. Know you're happy to see that. Hunter Inslee continues to stay hot, and just what heroics Hunter Inslee displayed Friday night. Got to mention that the catch at the wall that I'm sure everybody has seen, the slide at home, another vintage Hunter Inslee slide, even made the sliding catch to end the thing, had 2 hits on the night. Just, he's further cementing himself as a Vol legend. Hunter Inslee is, when this team is struggling, a true leader. And man, it feels like, Liam Doyle is the MVP of this Tennessee team, but it feels like you could argue that Hunter Inslee is a 1B in that department right now.
Yeah, for sure. He's just been so consistent for Tennessee. And I mean, that's what he was again this weekend. I mean, it's, hard. I don't know, feel for the guy. That's probably not the right word, but it's very understandable to see why he's frustrated.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, of course.
Because it feels like, and look, this weekend was probably the best of his season, but he's been really good throughout the season. I would say he's been Tennessee's most consistent guy, week in and weekend out in the lineup. And then you throw in what he does defensively in center field for Tennessee. So, and look, this kind of goes back to what I said near the beginning of the podcast. I think when you just sit there and look at the weekend stats, there's a lot of positives.
Yep.
Dean Curley had a really nice weekend. Andrew Fisher did a lot of really good things.
2
Dalton
homers on
Bargo,
Sunday.
Yep. He was great on Sunday. Dalton Bargo was great. And even I think you look at a guy like Chris Newstrom, whose numbers aren't great. I thought he had really good at bats. I thought he hit the ball really hard twice for outs. It's hard not to like the process. Levi Clark, I'd like to see in the starting lineup more. Here's where Ryan was wrong. Boy, what a terrible take it was from me last week on the podcast when I said that I thought the lineup Tennessee rolled with last weekend would kind of be the one they would roll with going forward, because it was anything but that. As Tony was searching for answers. I think Levi Clark should be in there every day. I like his at bats. I thought he looked good in his one start. Even Blake Grimmer gets a spot start, and he had really good at bats.
Damn close to a walk off.
Yeah, very close to the walk off home run in the ninth inning in Game 3. So I thought that from just an individual standpoint, there was a lot to like. They need more from Gavin Keelan. Again, it feels like when it comes to the top of the lineup, they just can't get everybody clicking at once. Gavin Keelan did not have a very good weekend. Cannon Peebles did not have a very good weekend. And Reese Chapman continues to struggle big time, to where he did not start on Sunday for the first time all season. So those kind of three would be the three negatives. but the other guys at the top were all really good, and I thought even some of the guys more in the bottom, the rotating starters, even if the results weren't all great all the time, the process was good. There were good at bats and maybe some bad luck.
When it comes to, in this order, third, left, right, DH, those four positions, what's your optimal group there?
It's a good question. I'll say third Bargo, left Newstrom, right Reese, DH Levi.
That's would be mine as well.
You just got to get. I mean, Reese. If Tennessee was playing tonight for a chance to go to Omaha, I don't know if I'd have Reese Chapman in the lineup, but especially if it's a lefty starting, I wouldn't have Reese Chapman in the lineup because he's just
Fair point there.
struggled so badly the last 2 weeks. But I think you got to I liked giving him a day off, but I think you got to let him work through it. He's more proven than any of those guys. He's still mostly had a good year this season for Tennessee. You just got to hope he can get right here down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, they don't win the Ole Miss series without his homer.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He's had good moments. Heck, 11 homers on the year. He's had really good plays in the outfield. He had a diving catch on Saturday in the outfield, and I think he catches that triple as well at the top of the wall. Not that Newstrom's just inexperienced, so I think Chapman would have been able to judge it better. Maybe he's a little more athletic, but he's a really good defensive player, and I think he's done enough to where you shouldn't just write him off. Not saying you are for the rest of the season, and I don't blame Tony for benching him for one game, but yeah, I agree. If I'm putting out my best 9, Reese is in there.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. And I mean, look, like even you just go to the first 6 SEC weeks, like he was good. Like you would say through 6 SEC weeks, he was good, and he struggled the last 3 weeks. And you highlighted at Ole Miss, like he's had some heroic moments, but more than that, he's just consistent. And was one of Tennessee's better bats. So, and look, even the game they won at LSU, he had a really nice night, if I'm not mistaken. So you have to have some trust in him to get right. But when you talk about individuals that you want to see have success, I think he would be near the top of that list for Tennessee.
And I'll just say this about Levi Clark. It feels like ever since, because he was so bad to begin SEC play, and then you just didn't see him for a long time. And then he's been worked back in slowly but surely these last 3 weeks. Of course, only had one start this past weekend, all 3 against Auburn. But I haven't seen a lot of bad Levi Clark AB since he's been worked back into the fold. Like, yes, he struck out some. The average isn't setting the world on fire, but man, I have confidence in Levi Clark going up there. And he worked a walk to load the bases, but I was telling Ryan Sylvia sitting next to me, like, this is a guy who can walk it off right here. Like, he has that side to him to where I trust Levi Clark fully right now. Like, just no inkling to pinch it within me with him going up right there. Like, there's just no thought of it. So
no,
Levi Clark is in a good spot. And I agree. He should be starting more because he feels like one of the more entrusted bats in this lineup right now.
I agree. I do think they clearly don't like him against lefties. I mean, that's the only explanation for why he didn't start on Friday. And they went with Jay Abernathy over him, who got pinch hit for, I guess, was Newstrom. Newstrom pinch hit for him, I guess.
After the first AB. It was a bad AB for him first, and then it was
he struck out twice.
Oh, twice? Okay.
He clearly went on a check swing, got a second chance, and then struck out on the next pitch.
Yep.
So, yeah, no, I mean, that was, to me, one of the more puzzling things of the weekend when it comes to lineup pitching decisions is I thought he would look great the week before against Auburn. And he didn't even start the midweek, which, whatever, fine, get other guys opportunities. I see that logic, but I really didn't get him not starting until Sunday.
Yeah, and our optimal lineup comes at the expense of Manny Marin. He's a solid player, just he's not doing enough at the plate to where he's a must play, but obviously good defensively, and we'll continue to see opportunities. Blake Grimmer, the DH start, was a surprise. Didn't expect to see that one coming. Only had just a few SEC at-bats under his name for his entire career, but as you said, had good presence on Sunday. We'll probably see more opportunities going forward. I would imagine it's only in a DH role, of course, but a good left-handed bat for Tennessee to use as they see fit, but probably not a guy that's going to be consistent starter or anything like that. I think we'd both be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah, no, agree. I would think he maybe just moves himself up to, like, top, pinch hit type guy,
Yeah,
would kinda be maybe my thought. I did think, you know, matchup-wise, he made sense. Fennell or however I don't know how
Fennel.
to pronounce Fennell.
I would imagine that's how you say it.
Uh, it's kind of a slow throwing righty. I think that's something, you've seen Blake Grimmer rake in midweek games. So you're talking about a guy with a little less velo. You feel maybe a little bit better about them throwing him into the deep end without a ton of SEC at bats against a high velo guy. And then I think Tony even mentioned the high changeup usage that they liked Grimmer against him. So matchup wise, it made sense. Maybe there's another matchup down the road that's kind of the same way that you feel like
Yeah.
is a good one for him and he gets to start. But I definitely wouldn't think in every game type guy, more of maybe just a top pinch hit candidate, along with, and when we're talking our ideal lineup, along with Manny.
Absolutely. Let's look ahead to some big picture things in this weekend. 15 and 12 in SEC play is Tennessee. You wrote about, um, their possible SEC tournament seeding. There's an article on that at rockytopinsider.com. Really good read. Check it out just about the teams around Tennessee, who currently sits at seventh, right, in the league.
Yep.
Top 8 get at least one bye. Top 4 is a 2-round bye, but that's not going to happen for the Vols. So best case scenario is Tennessee doesn't have to play until Wednesday in the SEC tournament, but with a tough series looming in Fayetteville, of course, hey, Tennessee's played better on the road, and Arkansas is definitely mortal. But hey, it's obviously a tough team to go up against here in the regular season. Tennessee, I don't know if they need to win the series to be top 8, but they definitely got to take a game here, you think. So it's a massive, massive weekend. And then when it comes to NCAA regional hosting, a series win would put them in a really good spot. One win, I think you still have to have a pulse in Hoover. No wins, you got to make a run in Hoover, is the way I see it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think no wins, very little chance of hosting a regional. Probably deep run needed in Hoover.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, and that was funny we're obviously two guys that do this podcast every week. We're sitting here at the 42-minute mark. We've been deep diving all these discussions. Like, it's pretty simple. You got to go win the game Liam Doyle pitches. You need your best guy to be really good, and then just find out a way to win another game.
Hey,
Get another game close and get some clutch
yeah.
hitting. But no, I think that's all right. The one thing I would say, because obviously if you're Tennessee, you want to have the single bye and not play until Wednesday in Hoover. And we'll see. It's probably a conversation for next week's podcast how Tennessee will handle their pitching in Hoover. I'm not sure I would do Liam Doyle on another day's short rest, but that maybe depends on what your regional status looks like. All that to say, the pitching's one of the big reasons that you would want to have that first round bye.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say if you're at a 9 or to 10, you're going to get a good draw. I mean, Missouri and South Carolina are very clearly the two worst teams in the SEC. So if Tennessee does fall out of the top 8, you don't want that to happen. If they do, it's almost very, very, very little chance they would fall lower than 10. So even if that happens, you feel good about who Tennessee would play on Tuesday and being able to win that game. So that's, I guess, just the one other thing I would add when it comes to outlook for the SEC tournament and that seeding at this point.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is that Tennessee going 0-4 in its next 4 games, including Arkansas and Hoover, is not likely at all. Because if they go 0-3, they're probably playing Tuesday. Should win that game, as Ryan said. Missouri and South Carolina are buns. So, I mean, hey, Mizzou just swept A&M on the road, which is crazy, but you'd expect Tennessee to win those games.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I guess Missouri, you're in monitoring mode. Maybe they go out there and win a game or two this weekend. You're like, okay, maybe this team has a little bit of pulse. South Carolina has completely given up on the season, so there's no pulse there. South Carolina seems like a team that's ready to get to Hoover on Tuesday, lose, and go home and not have to play any more baseball for the rest of the year.
Was it 24 runs they gave up on that Thursday?
Yes, I think so.
Game 1 this past weekend? So bad.
Yeah.
Just so bad. 5 and 22 in league play?
Yep.
Brutal.
Yep. Heck, maybe Missouri could maybe catch them this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know who each of them play, but that would be fun if that happens. All right, let's talk this series just in itself. You said Liam Doyle has to win, obviously his game, but do you think Tennessee can win this series? Like, what would be your surprise level if Tennessee does win this series?
I'd put it like a 15% chance Tennessee wins the series.
Dang, that's low.
Maybe 20. I'll go 20. Let's go 20. Yeah, I don't know. It's just you are right. They have played better on the road. It's just hard to feel good about this team doing what it takes to be the good team in a series right now. And Arkansas definitely is. They're not just a juggernaut, but they're second in the SEC for a good reason. They're a
Yeah.
very good team. So that's what I would say. Maybe we want a real spin zone on it. Tennessee's really had Vanderbilt's number. It really dominated Vanderbilt in the last couple of years, and Vanderbilt took a close series on the road over Tennessee this weekend. Arkansas's really had Tennessee's number. They've really dominated Tennessee in Tony's tenure. Granted, they didn't play in 22 and 24, which were Tennessee's two best teams. But maybe you find a way to flip that this weekend.
I will say this: it feels like the most likely outcome is Tennessee wins one this weekend, and then so that puts them at 16 and 14, and then it's like, okay, what does Tennessee need to do in Hoover to host? That feels like what we're going to be talking about. Kendall Rogers tweeted this after the Vandy series. He said, "Massive road series win for Vanderbilt. That suddenly makes the final series of the year in Fayetteville for the Vols very important. Might be tough to stay in the top 16, losing 6 of last 7 series." So Kendall's tweet indicates that, hey, even if Tennessee takes one, like, you still lost 6 of your last 7 series, barring a deep run in Hoover, which we don't really expect to happen. Maybe Tennessee's just not going to be a top 16 seed anyway at 16 and 14 in league play.
Yeah, I think it's, kind of the classic. And look, we see that's more in the NCAA basketball tournament. And certainly with that tournament, the metrics for what matters seem to change pretty frequently. How much does what's happened recently? How much does the importance of that compared to the full body of work? Because I think 16 and 14 for Tennessee and a win, certainly 2 wins in Hoover. If you're looking at full body of work of the season, yeah, that's probably low 16, but that's top 16 regional host. But how much does the committee look at Tennessee pre A&M series and post A&M series? Essentially,
it's an ugly 16 and 14.
It is a very ugly 16 and 14 in this scenario where Tennessee wins one this weekend. So that one, I think it's just kind of hard to say with what the committee will value, what the committee will look at. But it would hard to, I don't know, speaking for myself, maybe other people feel differently. If Tennessee is 16 and 14, and even if they just win a game in Hoover, it would be hard for me to blame the committee for not having Tennessee as a regional host.
I agree. Yeah, like I said, barring a deep run, dude, you lost 6 of your last 7 and 5 straight to end the year. And 5 of those came at home of the 6 of the last 7.
Yeah. 4 of them came at home.
Kentucky, Auburn, Vanderbilt, A&M. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they had Florida earlier at home.
Yeah. All right. Well, things get underway Thursday night this week. The second Thursday through Saturday series. Kind of weird. Tennessee bookends its SEC play schedule with Thursday through Saturday series. Game 1, 8 p.m. Eastern Time in Fayetteville. 7:30 Eastern Time on Friday nights. And then 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. Games 1 and 3 are televised. E2 on Thursday. SEC Network. Game 3. SEC Network Plus on Game 2. So if you can't watch that one, be sure and follow along with RTI's live at-bat by at-bat update threads on RocketTopInsider.com. If you want to follow Ryan, you can do that at rshump00. I'm at Jack Foster Media. And of course, follow RTI at Rocky Top Insider on all social media platforms. Before Ryan, I'm Jack. We'll talk to you next time after the Tennessee-Arkansas series here on the RTI Diamond Pass.